Can your partner sponsor you if they've sponsored someone else before? Today, we're going to talk about one of the criteria that's really important to meet for your partner to be able to sponsor you. My name is Abby from Migration Centre of Australia, and we specialise in skilled and family migration. If your partner has either been sponsored or has sponsored someone before, you need to be very mindful of the dates that you're proceeding with. You might be wondering, how can a previous relationship affect your future relationship with an Australian permanent resident or citizen that you want to spend your life together with? It's important because they may have sponsored someone else before, or they may have been sponsored themselves before. And what the Australian government is trying to do is stop this from happening too often, because the system can break down if it is not scrutinized. What this means is, what if someone tries to use the system to their advantage? What if they try to sponsor 4, 5, 6, 7 people in their lifetime, right? They don't want this to happen. They want the relationships to be genuine. Yes, they understand that relationships can break down, and that's why generally there is a limitation on how many times an Australian permanent resident or citizen can sponsor someone. And that is 2 times. So if someone has sponsored a previous partner 2 times before, it's generally not possible to sponsor a 3rd time. Now, there are exceptions to this rule if there are compelling circumstances on why the previous relationships broke down. Maybe someone passed away, or maybe both the previous partners happened to pass away, and because of that and circumstances being outside your control, you can still sometimes be allowed to sponsor for a 3rd time, but be very mindful that it is generally, according to the criteria, only 2 times. Now, this limitation about being able to sponsor only 2 people is across the entire lifetime, right? So you shouldn't be able to sponsor someone for a 3rd time in your entire life. So be very, very mindful if you are pursuing this pathway, because it can potentially limit future sponsorships. And the reason I say that is, make sure you're in a genuine ongoing relationship and you plan to spend the rest of your life together with your partner if you're going to pursue this pathway. Because what happens if you're not sure about this relationship and it does break down and you've utilized 1 sponsorship and you only have 1 more left then? Now, this doesn't mean that you're planning for the worst. Of course, you're hoping for the best and you want to utilize that. It's a very rare case to see someone trying to sponsor someone for a 3rd time. But even though it's a rare case, it's important to be informed. Now, the next thing is, if you've been sponsored yourself before and become a permanent resident, and then you want to sponsor someone else. Now, at least 5 years must have passed since the application was lodged for your partner visa. So for example, if I'm being sponsored, right, so I'm the visa applicant and I lodged my application on 1st of April 2026. Then let's say that application got approved, I eventually became a permanent resident, but that relationship broke down after my permanent residency. Then I'd have to wait 5 years from 1st April 2026. So what it means is the rules only exist to protect the integrity of the visa program. Now, if you have any history of family violence as a sponsor or criminal history as a sponsor, this can also affect the chances of a partner visa being granted, especially if it's anything to do with domestic or family violence. So leading on from this, when does a sponsorship count? So when is it taken that you have sponsored someone before? The sponsorship actually only comes into effect if the temporary visa has been granted. If the temporary visa has not been granted and the application is processing, it doesn't mean that you have used up one of your sponsorships. If the application is withdrawn before the temporary visa is granted, it's as if you've never actually been a sponsor, because those obligations don't come into effect until the partner visa decision is made. Even if it's the temporary partner visa decision, it still counts as you becoming a sponsor. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply to all the cases. Depending on how far your partner visa has progressed, it could still be the case that the officer tries to maintain that your sponsorship is valid and you have utilized one. So there are obviously exceptions to what I've said, but generally, if you withdraw an application before, it's as if the sponsorship should not have come into effect. So that point can be argued, because legally, if the temporary visa was not granted, according to the criteria, the sponsorship never became active. Now, if you are looking for an exception to the sponsorship rule, make sure you have really strong and compelling evidence as to why you should be allowed to sponsor a third time. So this includes individual facts about your case, circumstances beyond your control. For example, as I mentioned, if you're subject to family violence of any kind. Now, if your previous partners had passed away and those were circumstances, again, beyond your control, and all of these things you need to outline to try and get that exception. But it still means you need to lodge a partner visa, and then the department will determine whether they will apply that exception or not. So you may still lose thousands of dollars by applying, because you won't know the result until they make a decision on the partner visa application in most cases. It's really important as part of all your partner visa or sponsorship applications to have a full disclosure. Make sure you disclose your previous relationships that you were in. Mainly these are de facto relationships or previous marriages. If the department finds out any contradictory information when they conduct checks, this can detrimentally affect your chances because you couldn't be seen to have lied in the application. And if it's a refusal based on public interest criteria 4020, you can potentially still be barred for another 3 years from applying for any other kind of visa. Now, a refusal based on your sponsorship requirements can have serious consequences. As I mentioned, you could potentially lose that entire fee and have to appeal the application to argue that the decision that the department made was incorrect and why your partner visa should still be granted. This could be due to various things, as I mentioned, previous sponsorship, non-compliance, sponsoring more than 2 partners, the visa conditions on the partner. It could be many reasons, but what we want to focus on is meeting the sponsorship criteria if you're planning to sponsor someone again. And remember that if it's your second time, that's not an issue at all. But make sure if you've been sponsored before, at least 5 years have passed, you have a clear criminal history, and that you meet any of the requirements to be a sponsor and meet the sponsorship obligations. If your situation involves a partner who has sponsored someone before, previous relationships or divorce, children, family violence issues, or timing concerns and other complications, getting accurate professional advice is really important. So reach out to a consultant near you or click on the link below to reach out to us. If you have any more information that you need, you can also try and leave a comment below and we'll get back to you.